Here is something the Iranians used to call their biggest advantage in the Persian Gulf. They had three small rocky islands right at the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz, which is the most critical 33 kilometers of ocean on the planet. For over 50 years, Iran turned these islands into heavy fortresses filled with missile storage bunkers, coastal radar systems, fast attack boat bases, and air defense batteries covering the whole strait. Iranian leaders even called these islands their stationary and unsinkable aircraft carriers. Military experts in China published papers describing them as Iran's main shield, a network of 7 islands working together to stop any enemy from using the Strait of Hormuz without Iran's permission. These islands were the backbone of every action taken by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy during this conflict. Every ship swarmed by speedboats, every commercial vessel forced to stop, and every missile launched at passing ships was planned, prepared, and supported right from these islands. They were the heart of Iran's ability to shut down the most vital waterway in the world. On July 15, 2026, the United States military arrived at one of those islands at 6 in the morning. What they did over the next 90 minutes completely changed the direction of this entire fight. But there is a part of this story that most people are completely missing. The attacks on the islands were not even the biggest move the US made that week. I'm going to walk you through the entire picture today, including the islands, the swarming speedboats, the robotic sea drones, the A-10 attack planes hunting fast boats right above the water, and a major moment that defense analysts are calling a real turning point in the history of naval battles. Stay tuned for all of it. Before we jump in, here is a quick introduction. I am a former military fighter pilot. I have flown combat missions in the F-15E Strike Eagle and served with the Thunderbirds flying the F-16. Before that, I spent years studying military targets, weapons, and Air Force strategy at a high level. I have been inside the cockpits and the planning rooms where these big decisions are made. That is the experience I am bringing to this analysis today. Everything in this breakdown is fully checked and sourced. I will clearly explain what is confirmed, what is still unfolding, and where experts still disagree. There is no hype or guessing here, just plain facts. Let us dive in. To understand what the US military just did to Iran's coastal bases, you first need to know what these locations are and why they have been central to Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz for half a century. When military statements mention places like Greater Tunb Island, Abu Musa, Qeshm, and Hengam, most people reading had no idea what those places were. Let us fix that right now. The Strait of Hormuz has a deep water route running right through it, which is the path that large oil tankers and gas ships must take to pass between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. This path is very narrow, and sitting right along its western edge are 3 small islands that Iran has held since 1971: Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, and Abu Musa. Put together, their total land area is under 25 square kilometers, or about 10 square miles. That is smaller than an average city, but their position is what matters. Greater Tunb sits about 30 miles south of the Iranian mainland and 50 miles northwest of the UAE. It sits right on the main shipping lane used by loaded oil tankers heading into the Persian Gulf. Any missile system placed on Greater Tunb can reach every single vessel entering or leaving the deep channel. Every radar on that island watches every ship that tries to move through. Abu Musa is located further west, covering the area where ships approach before they even reach the main strait. Lesser Tunb sits right between them. Together, these 3 islands form a connected defense system that lets Iran track every ship movement and threaten traffic whenever a crisis begins. On top of those 3, other islands were also targeted in this campaign. Qeshm is Iran's largest island in the Persian Gulf and acts as a major part of this same network. Hengam Island was also hit, as confirmed by Iranian media, when US strikes hit a location there. Then there is the massive port city and naval base at Bandar Abbas on the Iranian mainland, which looks directly over the strait. Together, these locations make up the physical backbone of Iran's power to watch, threaten, and close the Strait of Hormuz. They are not secondary targets. They are the main command center of Iran's naval capabilities in this area, and the US military has been systematically tearing them apart. There is also a historical background that makes this situation even more important, and it explains why the UAE cares so deeply about what the US military is doing to these islands today. Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, and Abu Musa were not originally Iranian. On November 30th, 1971, just 2 days before the United Arab Emirates officially became a country, the Iranian Navy under the Shah launched a military operation and took all 3 islands by force. The takeover was fast. Iranian warships arrived at Lesser Tunb, where 6 local police officers tried to fight back against 2,000 Iranian soldiers. 4 people died, and the islands were captured. 2 days later, on December 2, 1971, the UAE was officially formed, and one of its very first actions as a new country was to protest the loss of these 3 islands now occupied by its powerful neighbor. For over 50 years, the UAE has claimed these islands belong to them, bringing it up at international summits and meetings, while Iran has rejected every claim. While diplomats argued, Iran kept building. By the mid-1990s, foreign observers documented Iranian soldiers on Abu Musa alongside surface-to-air missiles, heavy artillery, and anti-ship missiles. By March 2025, the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy publicly claimed that new missiles placed on Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, and Abu Musa could hit ships up to 600 kilometers away. That distance covers the entire Persian Gulf, from islands taken by force 50 years ago. The commander called them his most important area of operations. Iranian officials called them unsinkable aircraft carriers. But on July 15, 2026, the United States military proved they were not unsinkable at all. Now let us look at the part of this story that is the most overlooked and yet the most important. It explains why the US military had to use creative methods like autonomous sea drones and low-flying A-10 attack jets over the Persian Gulf. Iran's most dangerous weapon at sea is not the large missile systems on those islands, nor is it their submarines or radar posts. It is their fleet of small, fast attack boats, often called the Mosquito fleet. Reports show that Iran's fleet consists of thousands of small speedboats that can travel at speeds between 40 and 60 knots. They are fitted with machine guns, rockets, light anti-ship missiles, and sea mines. Looking at individual speedboats misses the main point of how they are used. Iran's naval strategy, built over 40 years, focuses on unconventional sea warfare. The goal is not to fight and defeat the US Navy in a regular sea battle. The goal is to make the Strait of Hormuz so dangerous that commercial shipping companies are afraid to enter. Iran does not need to sink a massive oil tanker. It only needs ship captains to worry that their vessel might get surrounded, boarded, or hit by a mine. If insurance prices go sky high, ships simply stay in port, and the strait shuts down, without Iran ever needing to win a traditional naval battle. Iran has mastered this approach. Their fast attack boats run at high speeds and attack from many directions at the same time, using swarming tactics to overpower a ship's defenses. These small boats do not show up well on radar, can hide inside coastal caves, and can strike and run away before a large warship can react. Iran has continually added dozens of new, faster combat speedboats to its fleet, with newer models designed to reach extreme speeds. These are modern, constantly updated weapons designed specifically for this shallow environment. Even after weeks of heavy airstrikes, reports indicate Iran still holds on to about half of its original speedboat fleet. Experts note that these small boats are actually the main problem, capable of disrupting global trade without launching a full, formal blockade, which makes them very tricky to counter. Let us break down the exact operational details of what the United States military did to these coastal bases. On July 13th, the military launched a continuous 5-hour mission, hitting targets along the entire southern coastline of Iran and across the island network all at once. Precision weapons were used to destroy coastal defense systems, missile bases, drone storage, and naval sites. That means the radar tracking stations watching the strait were destroyed. The long-range missile batteries on the islands were knocked out, and the launch sites used for targeting speedboats were neutralized. Then came July 15th, when the US military carried out 3 separate waves of strikes in a single day, an operational pace rarely seen in this campaign. The first strike began right at 6 in the morning and lasted for 90 minutes. Official statements confirmed that precision bombs hit coastal defense systems, missile storage, and launch sites on Greater Tunb Island. That single island fortress received a dedicated 90-minute bombing run that removed its ability to launch cruise missiles or defend its shores. 9 hours later, a second wave hit, followed by a third strike later that night, targeting command centers, air defense systems, missile sites, and coastal observation posts. Destroying those observation posts was critical because without them, Iran loses its eyes on the water. They cannot direct a swarm of speedboats toward an oil tanker if their radar networks and coastal cameras are broken. The third wave was designed to blind their command structure completely. Furthermore, July 15th marked the first time in this entire campaign that the US conducted strikes in broad daylight. Every prior attack took place at night or during twilight. Striking in open daylight was a clear statement that the US military could operate openly against Iran's most defended islands without being stopped. Before we talk about the robotic sea drone attack at Bandar Abbas, which truly changes the rules of modern naval warfare, consider how fast this conflict is moving. The tactical shifts happening here are being studied closely by major military powers around the globe. Now, let us examine Bandar Abbas and the three uncrewed drone boats that made history on July 12, 2026. Bandar Abbas is Iran's primary naval base, sitting right on the coast of the Strait of Hormuz and serving as the main home for their naval operations. On that day, the US military used three autonomous Corsair surface drones, robotic boats with no human crew, to sail directly into the base and strike a submarine repair facility. Military video released later showed the perspective from inside one of the drones as it closed in on its target. The camera footage showed a yellow maintenance frame holding an Iranian Ghadir-class submarine out of the water for repairs. The drone moved closer and closer until the screen went black upon impact. What remains significant about this strike is that it represents an advanced level of autonomous technology in active combat operations. The Corsair Sea Drone has a long range of up to 1,000 nautical miles and carries a heavy 1,000-pound explosive warhead. It travels extremely low on the water, making it very hard for radar to spot. Deploying three drones at once ensured that even if one was targeted, the others would reach the facility and complete the objective. The submarine hit during this attack was out of the water, undergoing fixes, and the damage rendered it completely unusable for future operations. This strike closely mirrors how sea drones were used effectively in recent European conflicts to disrupt major fleets. The US military took those lessons, built dedicated military-grade drone boats in high numbers, and proved their capability in combat. The strategic signal sent to other nations is very clear. Coastal bases and naval ports are no longer safe from long-range robotic attacks that put zero friendly forces in harm's way. At the same time, another key tactic being used involves low-altitude air power. Top military leaders confirmed that the focus of this fight has moved closer to the surface of the water. Legendary A-10 Warthog attack jets were brought in specifically to hunt down Iranian speedboats in the Strait of Hormuz, alongside Apache attack helicopters used to destroy sea drones and monitor movement across the Gulf. The A-10 Warthog was originally built to destroy heavily armored ground targets during the Cold War. It flies low, moves slowly, can take heavy damage, and carries a massive 30mm rotary cannon that fires thousands of heavy rounds per minute. Flying right over the water, the A-10 is perfectly suited for hunting small, fast-moving speedboats. Pilots flying at low altitudes can visually confirm whether a boat belongs to armed forces or local fishermen, avoiding accidental civilian harm. The aircraft is also tough enough to survive light enemy fire and remain in the area for a long time. Meanwhile, Apache helicopters bring precision missiles and night vision capabilities to track down explosive remote control boats and fast attack crafts. Using heavy attack planes and armed helicopters creates a constant layer of air pressure that Iran's speedboats have never had to deal with before. On July 15th, while airstrikes were hitting the islands, the US military also enforced a strict naval blockade on Iranian ports. An unflagged oil tanker ignored multiple direct warnings and continued heading toward an Iranian crude export terminal. US forces fired a Hellfire missile directly into the tanker's exhaust stack, completely disabling the engine without sinking the ship or harming the crew inside. The message sent to international shipping companies was unmistakable. The blockade is active, and ships attempting to enter Iranian ports will be disabled immediately. Following this event, commercial ship traffic through the strait dropped sharply as maritime companies took the warning seriously. However, a difficult reality remains regarding this style of warfare. You cannot completely eliminate a fleet of small speedboats using aircraft alone. Iran's fast attack boats can hide inside natural sea caves and between the thousands of tiny inlets along their long coastline. The complex geography gives small boats plenty of places to stay hidden. You cannot target a sea cave in advance if you do not know which one holds active boats. Once a group of fast boats comes out and charges toward a tanker from different directions at high speeds, the time window to stop them is extremely short. Intelligence reports suggest that even after weeks of strikes, Iran still keeps about half of its speedboats hidden and ready. They designed this force specifically to survive heavy air campaigns by keeping it spread out and decentralized. Their naval leaders have openly stated they intend to wait in the Gulf with speedboats and drones to strike back. This is precisely why the US military is using a multi-layered plan. Airstrikes on the islands strip away Iran's forward radar posts and heavy missile systems. Robotic sea drones strike main naval repair facilities and submarines inside their harbors. Low-flying A-10 attack jets and Apache helicopters patrol the water to hunt individual speedboats. Meanwhile, enforcing the blockade with precision strikes alters the financial choices for any commercial ship owner considering trading with Iran. Continuous GPS signal jamming in the region also creates navigation challenges for ships, making travel even more complicated. The United States is running an integrated campaign against an opponent that has spent 40 years preparing for this exact fight. Striking the islands took away the eyes and command centers that the speedboats rely on. Without radar stations on those islands, Iran cannot easily locate tankers to send speedboats after them. Without long-range island missiles, the dangerous zone for commercial ships grows much smaller, and without repair yards at main bases, damaged submarines cannot be put back into the fight. Looking at the overall situation, the US military has achieved several key operational goals in a very short time frame. They damaged the fortress islands guarding the mouth of the strait, completed daylight bombing runs, deployed autonomous sea drones in combat for the first time, brought in low-altitude attack planes to hunt speedboats, and strictly enforced a commercial blockade at sea. This was not a rushed response. It was a pre-planned strategy waiting for the right moment to execute. The sea drones and specialized aircraft were positioned and ready to go as soon as the directive was given. What experts are watching closely now is how Iran adjusts its strategy. Iran has lost key naval commanders, its main island network has been heavily damaged, repair bases have been hit, and the loss of oil trade creates massive economic pressure every day. Yet, Iran continues to challenge ship traffic, launch missiles at regional bases, and claim actions in the strait. This shows that Iranian leaders still believe that threatening the world's main oil transit route gives them leverage, even while taking heavy damage. Whether that strategy holds as more speedboats and island bases are knocked out is the main question moving forward. The effects of what happens in this 33-kilometer-wide stretch of water extend far beyond the region, impacting global markets and supply chains everywhere. Before this conflict, over 100 large cargo and oil ships moved through the Strait of Hormuz every day, carrying nearly a quarter of the world's daily oil supply. Major nations around the world rely heavily on energy flowing through this narrow passage. When ship traffic drops to a small fraction of normal levels, insurance costs rise, shipping becomes expensive, and energy prices go up worldwide. Commercial shipping does not require every vessel to be attacked to stop moving. If risk levels and insurance rates get too high, ships simply anchor and wait. The ultimate goal of the current military campaign is to degrade Iran's capabilities to the point where international maritime trade can safely resume through the Strait of Hormuz once again. This is Defense Archives. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one.